The Incredible Hulk. Let's get right to it. Should you watch or skip this movie? And unfortunately, this is a skip. Taken from the perspective of someone who wants an entertaining movie, but also a movie that's relevant towards the overall storylines of the MCU, the Hulk just isn't it. Firstly, the main character is played by Edward Norton, who was replaced after this movie by Mark Ruffalo, so we never see Edward Norton again, which is kind of jarring. Edward Norton is a great actor, he's in a lot of great movies. It's kind of a disappointment not to see him again, though I do like Mark Ruffalo. Secondly, this movie's only referenced about 3 times off the top of my head when other movies are constantly referenced. The first time is in the What If streaming television show, which isn't really relevant and takes place in alternate universes. The second 2 times involve the villain of this movie, the Abomination, and is kind of getting more relevant with the She-Hulk series that is currently airing on Disney+. With all that said, this is still not that entertaining of a movie. It's not terrible, but the plot is bare bones. If you're still on the fence whether to skip or watch this movie, let's get to the summary and see how you feel after that. This movie is slightly different from the other movies in that it picks up right from the middle of the story. It doesn't tell you how he became the Hulk. It assumes the audience knows the concept of the Hulk. The MCU origin of the Hulk is slightly different from past versions, but it's not that different. Bruce Banner is a scientist working on a government project that he thinks is related to getting rid of radiation poisoning. Turns out it's actually a secret weapons project and creating super soldiers for the government. In the middle of his experiment, he gets impatient and decides to experiment on himself to speed up the timetable. Unfortunately, things go wrong and he turns into the Hulk. The Hulk is kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde type of deal. When Bruce gets stressed and his blood pressure rises, he turns into a green monster alter ego that he is not in control of. His Hulk alter ego is super strong, nearly indestructible, and often very angry like a force of nature. Whenever he turns into the Hulk, things get destroyed, property gets damaged, things explode, people get injured or die. It's biblical. In this version of the Hulk, Bruce Banner is on the run from the military because the military knows the potential of his blood and they want to use his DNA to create more super soldiers like the Hulk. So Banner is on the run because he believes that his blood is too dangerous to be given to the government, who seeks to weaponize it. The story picks up in Brazil. Bruce is still hiding out as a fugitive. Eventually, the government tracks him down. He goes on the run again. For some reason, he decides to go visit his ex-girlfriend, Betty Ross. Betty Ross is also the daughter of the general that's pursuing him and was in charge of the weapons project. After meeting up with Betty, Bruce and Betty head to New York City in hopes of finding a scientist that Bruce was anonymously talking to. Bruce hopes that this scientist is capable of curing him of his Hulk condition. Meanwhile, a member of the British Special Forces named Emil Blonsky is recruited into the force meant to capture Bruce. After seeing the destructive power of the Hulk, Emil volunteers to undergo a similar procedure to the one Bruce went through in hopes of becoming a super soldier. Back in New York City, Bruce and Betty actually find the anonymous scientist named Samuel Stearns. The 3 decide to perform a procedure to try to cure Bruce of his Hulk condition, which kind of works, but not really. The government then tracks Bruce and Betty to New York City and captures both of them. Emil Blonsky, on the other hand, tracks down Samuel Stearns and forces him to perform the procedure to make him even more Hulk-like. The procedure goes wrong, and instead of becoming more of a super soldier, he becomes an abomination. Emil then goes on a rampage around Manhattan, leaving Bruce no choice but to turn into the Hulk again to try to stop him. So Bruce turns into the Hulk, he fights Emil, eventually chokes him unconscious, then flees as a fugitive once again. We end the movie with Bruce meditating and his eyes turning green, seemingly implying that he has some control over the Hulk at this point. Now, if you continue watching MCU movies, you kind of know that's not the case. They kind of ignore that he might have some control over the Hulk and instead just turn him back into this walking nuclear bomb. Another interesting takeaway is that Tim Roth, the actor who played Emil Blonsky, will reprise his role as Emil Blonsky in the new She-Hulk series currently airing. Keep in mind, The Incredible Hulk came out in 2008, so it's been over 10 years since he's played that role. Also worth noting is that The Incredible Hulk will be the last Hulk movie we will have for a long while. Universal owns the rights to the Hulk, not Disney. What that means is that Disney can continue to use the Hulk character as a co-star in other titled movies, but the Hulk cannot show up in his own named film. Maybe that will change in the future if Universal and Disney can come to a deal, but that does not seem to be the case at this point. That's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked what you saw here.